Palantir has a course on learn.palantir.com called Deep Dive Building Your First Application. Wherever you are in your Foundry learning journey, it's a good tutorial for sharpening your workshop skills.
Discover how Palantir customers unlock more value from Foundry and AIP thanks to our live instructor-led trainings. We are Ontologize, a group of former Palantir engineers who love teaching. We've trained thousands of Palantir users at leading organizations around the world. Unlock the full potential of your Palantir deployment by going to ontologize.com.
This is learn.palantir.com. I'm going to come up to the top of the screen and choose from the courses menu. And then I'm going to use the filters on the left side of the screen to just filter to the deep dives. And we're looking for deep dive building your first application. You want to register for the course, and then you'll be able to see the content. It's always good to have some context for what we're building, so let's go ahead and take a look at the use case for a moment. In this tutorial, you're going to take on the role of a supply chain specialist whose job it is to make shipments more efficient by consolidating those shipments where possible. We're going to end up building a workshop application that allows us to review shipments and mark them for consolidation and otherwise just get a good situational awareness about what's going on in our supply chain. Before building in workshop, however, we're going to need some ontology object, link, and action types to support the workflow. Moving from right to left in this data lineage graph, vehicles carry shipments to and from locations. Those shipments are made up of bundles of products that are called product shipments. The efficiency to be gained is when there's additional space on a vehicle to accommodate other product shipments to the same location. We're about to start building, but first you should be aware of 3 ways your permissions will affect your ability to follow this course. First, you need a project where you have at least the editor role. This could be a learning project set up by one of your Foundry administrators, in which case you can simply add a course-specific folder in that shared project. If not, you'll just need a project where you have the ability to add new files. To echo a warning in the course intro, don't use the Your Files area of Foundry. It needs to be an actual project. You're also going to need the ability to install products from Palantir's data product store called Marketplace. I'll show you how to do that in the walkthrough, but there's a chance you may need a colleague with requisite permissions to do so. Finally, you're going to need the ability to edit the ontology, or at least create a Foundry branch that you can merge into the main branch. If you are following that branching workflow, it's going to take you longer to complete the course because you'll need to wait for merge proposal approvals as you work. I'm about to show you how to install the Marketplace product that you'll need for this tutorial. I am inside of a learning project called Palantir Tutorials. Yours might have a different name, or you might be working in a different project altogether. I have a folder in here called Deep Dive Building Your First Application. This is going to be where I'm going to install the Marketplace product. I'm going to hit Control-J or Command-J if I'm on a Mac, and I'm going to look for Marketplace. If you don't see Marketplace surface, you'll want to reach out to a Palantir administrator or one of your colleagues who may have access. Go ahead and click Marketplace once you find it. We are looking for a store called Palantir Learning Store, searchable by keyword in the upper right corner. And inside the Learning Store, you're looking for Deep Dive Building Your First Application. You can also search for it up at the top if you don't see it right off the bat. Here's what we're going to install. We have 5 ontology object types. We have link types between them. We have 5 data sets that back those ontology object types. Let's come up to the upper right corner and click the Install button. Now, there are a variety of ways to get this product installed in your environment. If you look at the suggestions in this portion of the training, it will tell you to add an installation suffix that will install the Marketplace product as its own project with a suffix of your username. That's a perfectly acceptable way to do this. The way that I'm going to do this, because I have a subfolder inside of an existing project, I'm going to use an existing location rather than creating a whole new project altogether. And it's going to be inside this folder called Deep Dive Building Your First Application that you saw just a few moments ago. I'm going to click the Next button in the bottom right, and we'll continue through the setup wizard. Here's a review of everything that's going to be installed. The one thing that I do recommend you do is to come up to the upper right corner and turn on Prefix Ontology Entities. This is going to make sure that your ontology object types are distinguishable from others who are also going through this training in your Foundry environment. I'm going to turn this on. I'm going to prefix my ontology entities just with my first initial last name. You should choose an identifier that's appropriate. And I'm going to click the Next button in the bottom right. This gives us a chance to review and then install. The installation process itself takes less than a minute, but after it installs, you're going to need to wait for the datasets to build and for those built datasets to synchronize to the ontology and build the ontology object types. Altogether, it may take 5 or so minutes. After a couple minutes, there are some ways you can go to check to see how things are progressing. One way is to go over to the ontology manager. I'm going to hit Control J or Command J and look for, if I type the word manager, it will allow me to go to the ontology manager. I'm going to open it in a new tab. And here in the ontology manager, I can search for one of the object types created by the marketplace installation. My name, shipment, for example. And one indicator that your object types are ready to use is that you'll see a number underneath your shipments. For example, you should see 83 shipments. Another way that you can test to see whether your assets are ready for building is heading over to data lineage. Control J, data lineage. I'm going to open it in a new tab. I'll add resources to my data lineage graph, object types from my ontology, and look for my name. And for example, we have shipments. Continue to build that out. So it looks like I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 object types with a couple of action types here too. I can also hit Control A, select everything on my data lineage graph, right click on any one of the nodes and expand to the left to add 5 more nodes. And now I'm going to use my favorite layout shortcut, Control A, and then the letter L. This is going to show the flow of data from left to right. Now, there's not an extensive pipeline, but it does show the backing data sets for each of the object types that we have here. We always recommend saving a data lineage graph at the root level of your project. Even for training, it's a good practice to get in. So I'm going to come up to the upper right corner and click the Save As button. And I'm going to call this my first application lineage graph. And I'm going to save it right in the root folder where I'm going to be creating everything. Yours might have a different name. It might be a project rather than a folder. Regardless, find that location, click the Save button. And now you have a data lineage graph that's referenceable as you build. Let's go back into your containing folder. And we also see all the data sets. You're free at this point, if you'd like to add another folder to store all the data, that would be perfectly acceptable. It helps to organize things in your project folder. We might call it data. And I can click the top item, go down to the bottom, just like in any Microsoft application, hold the Shift key, click the bottom one, and drag them up inside of the data folder to move them. This line represents the marketplace product itself, in case I ever need to go change it for any reason. And of course, here's my data lineage graph that I just created. We're ready to add our workshop module. Go to your project folder. Upper right corner, you're going to find a green New button. Go ahead and click into it, and you're going to search for Workshop. Choose Workshop Module. When you want to create a new workshop application, you're going to choose Workshop Module. And I might use the word module and application interchangeably in this video. Here is an empty workshop module. 2 sections side by side. You have a header up top, and the default name in the upper left corner is what we're going to change first. You get workshop module and a timestamp. We're going to change this to Shipment Operations Center. That's what the course recommends you do. I further recommend that you prefix that with your name. It's going to distinguish it from your colleagues who are also following in this course in your Foundry training environment. So just in brackets, I'm going to put my name, same way that I prefixed my ontology object types, Shipment Operations Center. Our first task in building our Shipment Ops Center is to visualize the number of daily shipments arriving at each location. And when we want to get data into and moving around inside our workshop application, we're going to need to use a variable. So our first variable is going to store all shipment objects. Let's go to the upper left corner. When we want to create a variable, one way we can do this is in the left-hand sidebar of Workshop, we see that there's a variable item. Click into Variables, and we're going to choose Create Variable. When you choose Create Variable, the first question you're asked is, what is the type? And you'll notice that there are some common primitive types here, string, boolean, numeric, as well as some Foundry-specific ones like an object set. That's the one we're going to choose here. The second question you're asked is, how are you going to construct this variable? And we're going to do that with a simple object set definition. This is going to give us an interface for defining an object set. And an object set is like a query of an object type. let's click Object Set Definition. And we're going to start by changing the name of this variable from var1, that's the generic name. Let's change this to all shipments. Hit enter so that that name change takes. And we're going to go locate now your shipments object type that you installed via Marketplace. Click the drop down, search for your object by typing your name, and shipments, or shipment in the singular. Not product shipment, we want actual shipments. Click it. What you want to look for here is make sure that it's the right one. It should have this icon, 83 objects. Let's click the select button. And now we have a variable that stores 83 shipments. They're all numbered and have the word shipment in front of them. We can click the X in the upper right corner, and now we're ready to use this variable in a widget. We're going to put a chart widget into the right-hand section. Hover over the right-hand section and click the Add Widget button. The widget that we're looking for is called Chart XY, something with an XY axis. It could be a bar chart, it could be a line chart, scatter plot. There's a variety of options. Let's click Chart XY. We also suggest renaming your widgets. The course doesn't necessarily tell you you need to do that, but it's a good habit to get in. You can change the name of your widgets by going up to the configuration panel for the widget once it's selected, and changing the name from Chart XY to, say, Chart Daily Shipments. What this does is, if you come over to the left-hand side of your screen and choose the Layout icon, you're developing a table of contents, and at scale, you're going to be glad that you renamed your sections, you renamed your widgets. Let's configure the data inside of this chart. You're going to click into Layer Bar in the Plot Layers section, and the data input is going to be an object set. As a reminder, widgets take inputs, usually in the form of variables, and they commonly also output variables that can be used in other places in Workshop. It is indeed an object set input. We're going to choose the only one available, all shipments. Now we need to tell it what the X and Y axis is. The X axis property is going to be the arriving destination date. And we need to bucket it not by year, but by day. And already we get some intel from our data, namely that the month of April looks like was our highest volume in shipments across all locations. It's time to save our work. Let's go to the upper right corner. There's a blue button that currently says Save and Publish. Two different actions collapsed into a single button. Let's click Save and Publish. And let's take a look at what our module looks like so far by going over to the View mode. It's the button that's just over to the right of the Save and Publish button. And now we're in View mode. To get back to Edit mode, you're going to come up to the center of the screen, and you notice that there is a pull down, and we can go back to Edit mode here. It also shows the module version number. Edit. And while we're up here at the top of the screen, let's add a module header title. Clicking into the header opens its configuration on the right, and we can add a title in the top field. Let's just call this our Shipment Operations Center. Shipment Operations Center. If you'd like to choose a different icon, package is one of the available icons. Pick a package. If you'd like to choose a color, choose a color. And once again, let's click Save and Publish. Every time you click Save and Publish, it is going to increment the Workshop module by one minor version. I'm currently on version 0.3.0. If I click into that hyperlinked semantic version number, a modal pops up that allows me to, among other things, decouple the Save and Publish feature. So if I'd like to just be saving and not necessarily publishing, publishing here means that anybody who accesses this application in view mode is going to see that published state, but I can have saved states as I'm working toward additional published states. If I'd like to revert to a previous version or retroactively add a description to another version, revert to a version, even just view the version, I have access to all of that here. I'm going to click the X in the upper right part of that modal. The next thing that we want to do is enable our users to filter the selection of shipments so that the visuals in the Workshop application respond. So to do that, we're going to add a filter list widget on the left side of the screen in the left-hand section. So mouse over that left-hand section and click the Add Widget button. The widget we're looking for here is called a filter list. It's usually one of the ones at the top. It's a very popular widget. If you can't find it, search for it by keyword at the top, filter list. Click it once you find it. Let's rename this from filter list 1 to filter list : shipments. We need to define the input data. We need to define what it is we're filtering. And then we're going to take a look at what the filter list widget is outputting so we can use it in our visuals. So let's choose object set, and we're going to choose all shipments. Now the filters we're going to add, we add the properties on the object set that is in the input data section. So there's a few we're going to add. Let's add origin location name and destination. Now you'll notice as you type destination location, there are a few different string variables. There's a destination location geohash, there's a destination location name, and you may have to just click on a few of these to try it out. Looks like this one is destination location name. We also want to add departing origin date and the arriving destination date. And then finally, we want to get the total unit quantity. These show up as histograms and distributions according to the schema of the property that's being filtered. And let's scroll down to the bottom of the filter list widget configuration, and we'll see that there is an output here. This is a special data type called a filter. Let's click it to change its name from filter list 1 filter output. This is the variable configuration window. Let's click into the name of the variable, and let's change this to shipments filter and hit enter. You can simply click away in the background to have the filter list disappear, and we're back into our workshop module. You'll notice if we try to apply a filter, they're not connected. I want just the Houston facility. I don't see any change on the right side. The reason is that currently the same object set variable is going into both widgets. What we need is we need a new object set variable to populate our chart that responds to the filter. We're going to come over to the left side to the variables panel, open it up, and we're going to create a new variable here called filtered shipments. It's going to start with all shipments, and it's going to apply the shipments filter. Variables, click the plus sign at the top of the left-hand panel. It is an object set definition. Let's call this filtered shipments. Hit enter so that the name takes. We're going to start with all shipments. We don't want to search for this again. We don't need another call to the ontology. We're simply going to use an existing object set variable already present in our workshop module, all shipments, and we're going to filter that object set variable using a variable. Click using a variable, and it knows we have one filter variable available inside of our module called shipments filter. Let's click the X in the upper right corner of that window. We're halfway there, still no responsiveness. What we need is we need to now plug that new object set variable into the chart. So let's click on the right side of the screen. We'll click into the chart. You want to make sure you don't have the section selected. You want to make sure you click the chart itself. And we're going to go into layer bar. And we're going to remove all shipments from the data input section by clicking the X out to the right. And we'll replace it with filtered shipments. Now we do have to reconfigure these properties. The property that we want in the X-axis is called the arriving destination date, and we're going to bucket by day. Let's check to make sure we have some responsiveness from our filter. Yep, it looks like things are updating. The New York facility has 7 shipments. We should see 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So it looks like we're getting the right connection between the filter list widget and our XY chart. Take a moment to go into your variables panel. In the upper right corner, you'll find a graph icon, which if you click, you'll open something called the dependency graph. This is going to help us to make sense of how our variables and our widgets are connected together. For example, I see I have a variable here called all shipments. It is an input to a filter list widget, which outputs something called a shipments filter, which is used as an input to filtered shipments, which is the input to our chart. Especially as we start developing in Workshop, this is really going to help us to hone our intuitions about how these variables and these widgets are connected together. You can click the X in the upper right corner of the dependency graph once you're done looking at it, and then let's click Save and Publish. What we just did represents a pretty common pattern for developing with variables in Workshop. You might have thought, hey, this is kind of an awkward development path. I had to create a variable to go to my chart, only to configure a separate variable later and then unplug the existing variable from my chart and plug the new variable in. You're right, it's suboptimal, but intentionally done in this course to drive home this pattern for creating and using filtered variables. So what we see on the screen is what we needed to correct, and here's what we corrected it to. We created that filtered shipments object set variable that could plug into the chart. In reality, when you're developing in Workshop, you'll probably do it in this order. First, you'll create an object set variable containing the superset of things that you eventually want to filter. Then you'll add some kind of filter in Workshop. A filter list widget is one option. You will define the output variable as a filtered version of whatever the larger number one variable is there. Remember, this is a separate variable and data type. You'll then create a filtered version of the number one variable here that uses the shipments filter. That's the number 3 filter variable. You'll add your widget. In this case, it's a chart. It could be something else. It could be a table, could be an object list. And finally, you will plug that variable in as the input data for the chart, the table, whatever the widget is. Shipment managers still need to know what products are in these shipments and, importantly, the residual vehicle capacity. Then they can identify opportunities for consolidation. So let's enhance our application with these details. Whenever I'm developing in Workshop, I like to have the data lineage graph open just to remind me of how my object types are related and what the backing data is. We ultimately want to bring back details about what product shipments are part of each shipment. And notice we have a one-to-many relationship between shipments and product shipments. A shipment contains many product shipments, but a product shipment always only belongs to a single shipment. So here in our Workshop module, we're going to create a variable that stores product shipments associated with our shipments that we're already tracking. Come over to the Variables panel, click the plus sign, and we're going to create a new object set variable, and we'll use object set definition to define it. Let's call this filtered product shipments. Filtered because our starting object set is going to be our filtered shipments. So our product shipments are also going to respond to our filter because we'll be filtering the shipments that they're linked to. Filtered shipments, we want to traverse the link in the ontology to get linked objects, and we're going to get the your name product shipments. 159, something like that should come back for you. We'll click the X in the upper right corner. We're done configuring that variable. Workshop warns us when we have unused variables. The top of the screen, you'll notice there's a warning icon, which if you click, lets you know you've created a variable you haven't used. That's just fine. It's a warning. It's not an error. We can still save and publish our Workshop module without any problems. Let's add this new data to our chart. We can add it as another layer on top of the shipments themselves. Let's click into our chart and click Add a Layer. The second layer bar we'll click into. And our data input here will be filtered product shipments. We're going to choose the same x-axis property here, which is the arriving destination date. That's also a property on the product shipments, and we're also going to bucket by day. In this layer, we're going to do something a little bit different. Let's continue to scroll down, and we're going to have a different bar series configuration. Let's click Add Step. And instead of a mere count of our shipments, we actually want a sum. And specifically, we want a sum of the quantity. Now we can go ahead and remove the count series. We are not really interested in just a count of the product shipments. And we're left with just the sum. Finally, we're going to segment by, which means we're going to group the data in the bars by another property, namely the product description. Now, at my particular browser resolution, you don't see all the numeric values, but if I zoom out just a little bit, this is likely what you'll see. If you don't see numeric values, you might just have your browser zoomed in or zoomed out. If we mouse over each bar, we can see the individual products included in the product shipments themselves. Blue triangles, red squares, yellow circles. We also see that there's still a count that is from the other layer. So we see both layers represented, one overlaid on top of the other. Notice the difference in scale. There are 18 shipments on this day, but the product counts are much larger. We really ought to put these on different y-axes in order to make sense of the data. Let's go back over to the chart editor on the right side, scroll up to the top. We're inside of the layer configuring it. Just to the left, we see chart editor. This is going to give us access to the top level chart configuration. Go ahead and click chart editor. And we'll scroll down until we find the y-axis, and we're going to click the customize button. We want to have a second y-axis. Customize. That is an improvement, but still not a very legible chart. We've got one chart superimposed on top of the other one. We have shipments, we have our product shipments. The way we're going to deal with this is by turning the shipments chart from a bar chart into a line chart that will use that left axis. So let's once again go into the layer. We want the first layer. So we'll go into layer bar, that's that top one. And we're going to change this from a bar chart to a line chart. That looks better already. Let's continue though. There's a few other changes that we're going to make. Let's scroll all the way to the bottom. We're going to change the color to a gray. So choose a gray. I'm going to pick this particular gray under gray. It's the middle option. And then we'll also change the line style from solid to dashed. And now we have a shipment line chart that corresponds with that left-hand axis. Step 5 in this section has us make a few more aesthetic changes. Let's relabel these axes first and foremost. To do that, I'm going to go up to the chart editor, come down to the display settings for the axes, and instead of axis 1, let's call this count of shipments. And then of course, axis 2, we've got a corresponding change, and we'll call this product quantities. Now the product quantities axis could use a little bit of numeric formatting, maybe a comma in the thousands place. If we want to do that type of formatting, we're going to click back into axis 2, that's the one on the right side, and we're going to enable numerical formatting. Click that on, and the formatting that the course has us implement is grouping. Toggle use grouping on, and that will apply it actually across the board, including in the chart itself. Let's put a legend in the chart so we know what these colors mean. We'll scroll down to almost the bottom of the chart configuration, and we'll show the legend. That takes up a lot of real estate on the right side, lots of white space. And so how about instead we put it inside the chart, maybe on the left side? And then finally, let's change the coloring. Blue triangles, red squares, yellow circles are green. The next step shows us that we can provide some overrides to the segments of our chart. Let's scroll up to the top of the chart configuration, and we're going to go into the layer. It's the bar layer, not the line layer. Click into the bar layer, scroll all the way down where we find segment by. We're segmenting by product description, and we're going to add a display override for the segments. Now we just need to match the keys here with the colors that we want to provide. Add a segment. This one is going to be blue triangles. So we'll find blue triangles and color them with whatever color we decide here. Blue 3 is what Palantir recommends in the course. So let's add another segment underneath, and we'll call this red squares. And we're going to make this one red 3. And finally, we'll add yellow circles with a color of gold 3. Let's save and publish and go over to view mode and see how this looks. View. We have a chart that's nicely segmented, it's colored, it looks readable, and it responds to our filters. Let's go back into edit mode. We still lack some visual insights into what product shipments are part of what shipments and which shipments are a part of which vehicles. And the way we're going to do this is by adding a new section underneath our chart that has a table with all that information in it. So click on the right-hand section and turn your attention to the table of contents. If you don't see the table of contents, you might have the variables panel selected. So choose the layout panel, and you'll see that this section is organized in rows. What that means is if we add new content inside of this section, it's going to organize it in a row-wise configuration as opposed to a columnar orientation. So when we add a new section, we're going to add it below the existing one. So click into the chart. Up at the top of the screen, you have some buttons, and as you mouse over them, you see where it will add new content if we click the button. Let's add a section below. If you decide, I added the section below, but I would rather it be above, there's a move button, and because the section is organized in rows, the buttons are up and down. So I can move it up, I can move it down. Let's add a widget. Inside, click the Add Widget button in that new bottom section. And the widget that we're going to add is called an object table. It tends to be the first one, but you can search for it by keyword if you don't see it. Object table. Now, the name of this widget is Object Table 1 by default. We're going to call this Object Table : product shipments. This is just going to help us keep it straight in the table of contents. In fact, it looks like I used capitals before, so let's just be consistent. Here we go, product shipments. Now our input data is going to be filtered product shipments. So these are going to be all the shipments, but just organized in a tabular fashion. They're also going to respond to the filter list widget on the left. Filtered product shipments. Now, if you look at the course instructions in step 3, it tells you the columns to add. I'm going to put the first couple in, and then I'm going to pause the video, take a moment, add the rest of them in. You don't need to watch me add in 8 different columns into this table. The first one it asks for is the shipment name. So we can click Add Column, search for shipment name. These are properties on the object type being represented in the table. Shipment name. And then we want the origin location name. Okay, so you get the idea. Pause the video here, enter the rest of those. I'll see you in just a moment. Okay, we're back. We've got all those added in. This is a scrollable table. I'm scrolling left to right. Let's sort this table, and we're going to sort on the product shipment name. So let's come over to the right side in column configuration, scroll down just below the columns where we defined them, and there's a default sorts, and we're going to sort on a property, and that property is going to be the product shipment name. And it is ascending. The other thing we're going to do, this is a scrollable table, but how about we just have the columns automatically scale with the width of the display? To do that, I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom of the table configuration. There's a number of display and formatting options, including fit columns horizontally. Let's toggle that to the on position. And even though it looks cramped here, if I flip over to view mode, it spreads it out based on the resolution of my browser screen. I'm going to go back to edit mode. Now we're going to improve the layout. These sections still have generic names. We can make this look better by taking advantage of layout and styling options inside of Workshop. Let's come up to the upper left part of the screen. Make sure you select the layout menu, and we want to select the page. If you're on a section or one of the widgets, make sure you just go up to the page level, and the page level configuration opens on the right side, and we're going to change the padding controls. And we're just going to do something called compact, which just puts some spacing around the edge of the application and the widgets inside. Already a pretty great improvement. Now, I'm going to deviate slightly from the way that Palantir is going to tell you how to do this. I'll show you what they do, and then I'll show you an alternative. The right-hand section, let's also apply some styling. Let's click the section header. So we are editing the section. Scroll down. What Palantir will say here is add compact padding. And then scroll up and remove the section header. Here's what this does. Notice the height difference between the filter section on the left side and now our sections on the right side. It's just slightly off, and we have a boundary around. Now we could remove this boundary by turning the border style off, and that is already improvement, but you still have this height difference. If you like that, continue through the rest of the tutorial steps. If you'd rather them be the same, I'll show you how to do this. I'm going to back out. I can use Control-Z to back out of my changes. Instead, what I'm going to do with the right-hand section, click the section header, scroll down, add padding, but instead of adding compact padding, add a custom padding. And what I have found is that the space between, this is the vertical space between, about 16 pixels. You can do a little bit more if you want. I'm just sort of trying to match what's in between the left and right sections. Seems about right. Maybe it might be 18, so you could try 18 here as well. We still have this residual line that is the border around the containing section. What I can do then is click on the section header and two things. We'll turn the section header off and scroll down to the border style and make it borderless. It's going to work out a lot better. Now we can still go in and we can add the section headers as they have us do later, but this is going to ensure that you have the same height for the left and the right of your application. Now we can come into each of these and we can add a header. Let's click the chart, and at the top of the screen, we're going to click the Add Header button. Let's do the same thing with the table at the bottom. We'll click the table and click Add Header. Now we're going to configure all three headers. The word section here isn't doing anybody any good. Let's start with the filters on the left side. So we can edit the name of the section by just clicking directly into it. And we're going to call this filters. We're also going to change the style of the header. So click into that section header. Configuration opens on the right side. We're going to change the style from subheader to callout header. Let's give this an icon. There are plenty of filter icons to choose from. And instead of blue, let's make this gray. And actually Palantir wants us to color this dark gray 5 and change the size from large to standard. Filters, there we go. Let's do the same for the others. Our chart is called Product Shipment Arrivals. So let's change the name of it. You can change the name of it here. You can also, if you select the section header, you can change the title. Product Shipment Arrivals. There's an icon called Flow. Yeah, that's the one that we'll go ahead and grab. Let's do the one that's Flow End, I think that's the one that we want. And yes, we'll add a color. And the color we want is Sepia 3. And we'll also change this to the callout header with a standard size. Next, the table at the bottom, which is our shipment details. And there's a map. It's this path search. It looks like that's the icon they literally use in the screenshot. So we'll pick that one with a custom color of indigo 3. Change it to a callout header with a standard size icon. Let's save and publish. Go over to view mode. And if you followed the way that I did this, compare your implementation to the screenshot that you see. You make the call. If you prefer the way that you see it in the screenshot on learn.palantir.com, then simply follow the steps there. You've got all of the resources that you need in order to achieve that orientation. I forgot to do one thing, and that is we want to make this filter section collapsible. Maybe we want to get more real estate so we can see the chart better. Maybe there's more details in the table that we'd like to see. I'm going to go back into edit mode. To make a section collapsible, all we need to do is click on the section header, come over to the section configuration, scroll down about 2/3 of the way down, you'll find collapsible and toggle it to the on position. And now that can be collapsible. Save and publish. We have a lot of information in our app now. The next step is to provide a way to actually consolidate shipments together. What we're going to be looking for are shipments that leave the same origin and arrive at the same destination on the same schedule. And so because it's a schedule, we're going to use a Gantt chart widget to display that. We're going to use the bottom section. We're going to turn this into a tabbed section so we can toggle between the shipment table and the Gantt chart where we're going to make our optimizations. Head down to that bottom section, click on the header, open its configuration, scroll almost down to the bottom. Again, about 2/3 of the way down, you'll find a toggle that says Enable Tabs. We're going to turn this to the on position. And now we have tab 1 and we have tab 2, which contains nothing. If we scroll all the way down to the section configuration, we can name these tabs. So let's name tab 1 Shipment Details. And let's call tab 2 the Schedule. This just lets us toggle between these. Let's go over to the Schedule tab inside that bottom section, and we're going to click Add Widget. And the widget we're going to add is a Gantt chart. You'll probably have to search for this one at the top. Use the search bar for Gantt. We're going to choose the Gantt chart widget. Let's change the name of this widget from Gantt chart 1 to Gantt chart : schedule. And let's click into our data layer. It needs to be configured. There's a red exclamation point, actually corresponds with the red exclamation point here that lets us know your widget is poorly configured. Let's go into the layer and we're going to define the input data. And our input data here is going to be the filtered shipments. Now we have an event start and event end date property. This is going to allow it to size the Gantt bars themselves. So let's click the departing origin date and the arriving destination date. You'll see that there are only two possibilities, and that's because Workshop is aware of the schema of the object type. There are only two relevant properties here, two timestamp properties. So we have the arriving destination date is the second one. So it looks like we've got something here. The Gantt chart is showing us the schedule. Check out what happens if we choose, for example, in the filter, if the origin is St. Louis and the destination is New York, the pattern we're looking for here is like this. Shipment 57 and shipment 41 both start at the same time, they end at the same time, they leave from the same location, and they arrive at the same destination. What we're still lacking now are details about the vehicle capacity and the shipment payloads associated with each shipment. The way we're going to address that is with a hover tooltip. With the Gantt chart selected, head over to the right side. We're going to be inside of our data layer. Scroll down to the display and formatting, and we're going to select properties to show on hover, and there are two properties that we would like to show. We want to show the total unit quantity, and we also want to show the vehicle unit capacity. And now when we hover over, we can see, for example, shipment 57, there's 5,000, the vehicle unit capacity is 15,000. There's 14,000 here. This is a 20,000 unit capacity vehicle. So there's an opportunity to consolidate these two because this is 20,000 units, so 14,000 plus 5,000, still under 20,000. So now it's time to add in the operational component. How do we actually take this action inside of Workshop? I'm going to save and publish before we proceed. Our next step is to configure an action type. In the ontology, action types are what we go to configure when we want to allow users to make changes to data in the ontology. Specifically, what we would like to do is allow our supply chain manager to select a shipment and mark it for consolidation for some action further down the road. What we're interested in right now is simply marking it. We're going to change the status to eligible for consolidation. Before we head over and configure our action, when you click on these Gantt bars right now, you can't actually select them. You can hover over and you can get more details, but what I want to be able to do is click on them and then be able to click a button that does something with that selection. Let's click into the Gantt chart. Now you want to be inside of the layer, not at the overall widget configuration, inside the actual data layer. At the very bottom, there's a little toggle. It's easy to miss. Enable selection, turn that on. Your Gantt chart goes dark for a moment. Don't worry. What we need to do here is we're going to define the name of the output variable that gets set when we click on a row. So let's click into select object set variable, and we're going to create a new object set variable. This is going to be the output variable from the Gantt chart widget. Click. It gives it a generic name, Gantt chart schedule selected object set. Can we change this? Yes, let's change this. Click into it. It opens the variable configuration window, and we're going to change this to selected shipment. Hit enter so that that name change takes, and let's hit save and publish before we head over and configure our action. You'll also notice that if we click on these, there's actually a sticky selection, and that is setting the variable. The variable value right now for selected shipment is shipment 57. Let's go to the ontology manager. Control J, or if you're on a Mac, Command J, and you're going to look for ontology manager. I'd suggest opening this in a separate tab. You can right click, open link in a new tab, and then head over to that other tab. If you have to branch, remember your branching workflow. I'm going to proceed as if you're able to edit the main branch of the ontology. Some of you will not be able to do that. So go through your branching workflow, create a Foundry branch, and then merge that in. We are looking for your shipment object type. It might be here in the Discover menu. These are things that you have recently accessed. If you can't find it, you can search for it by keyword, your name, shipment. Find it. It's an object type. Click on shipment. And we're now at the object type configuration page. Before we create an action, we need to make sure that the object type is configured to be able to have actions. We're going to go to the data sources menu on the left side of the screen, click data sources, and we need to turn on edits. Remember that an action edits the ontology, and we need to allow edits on the object types that we want to edit. So toggle this to the on position. Then we'll head back to the overview. And what you'll see is that Palantir has already shipped the action. In fact, the two actions that we'll be creating with the marketplace product. Let's explore it anyway. It's worth going to investigate. Click on Mark Shipment for Consolidation. This is the action type. If we come down to the rules are what actions do. What the action is going to do is set the status of a shipment to eligible for consolidation. If we look at the user interface, this is what's going to be presented to the user. They're going to get a modal that pops up, says what is the shipment that you want to mark for consolidation. Let's say it's shipment 34, and they'll click the submit button and actually make a status change. If you come down to security and submission criteria, you can see that I am currently the only one who can take my action. Yours will be set up the same way. If you wanted to expand access to this action, you could select different submission criteria. While we're here in the ontology, let's go up to the upper left corner. Let's choose your name shipment. This is going to take us back to the object type. And what we're going to do is when the status property is set to eligible for consolidation, we want to display it with a different color. Let's go to the Overview tab, click on Properties, and then find in the list of properties Status. Go ahead and click it, and the configuration for the property opens on the right side of the screen. Tabs across the top of that configuration window include Display. How do we want this property to display? And we can allow conditional formatting. Now this works like Excel. You want an Excel cell to be colored red if a value is false and green if it's true. Similar concepts happening here. Let's add a conditional formatting rule where if the status is exactly eligible for consolidation, we'll make it, let's choose warning. So this is kind of an orange, dark orange color. Update the rule in the bottom right corner. And let's add a fallback color. So everything else, instead of green, we're going to change this to, we're going to choose blueprint, and let's choose gray 3. So everything else will show up as gray 3. And not standard, what we want is always true, gray 3. So this will be the fallback. Go ahead and click Update Rule. These rules get applied in order. So notice the dots here indicate there's some tactile control. We could drag these into a different order. But this is what we want. This is what the tutorial tells us to do. Go ahead in the upper right corner and click the Save button. And then save to ontology. Remember, if you're branching, you'll have to go through your branching workflow. Now we're ready to go back over to our workshop module and wire this all together. Okay, I'm back in my workshop module. We're going to put our button in the upper right corner of this bottom section. So click that section header. We're going to click the right-hand plus sign. This allows us to put widgets into headers. Click, and we're going to choose a button group. It's usually on the top row. You can search for it if you can't find it. Button group. Now we're going to call this button group, instead of button group 1, how about button group :actions? And we'll change this by clicking into the button 1. What does this button do? What is it called? Let's say Mark Shipment for Consolidation. Let's give this a different color. How about we change this to, we could choose a custom color. The tutorial has us choose from this list. We'll choose success. Let's make this icon the merge icon. Well, I think it's the data lineage one. You probably pick a few of these. Data lineage. Looks like a merging. And importantly, on click. Right now, this button does nothing. You can click it, but it does nothing. On click, we want it to trigger an action. And the action that we want it to trigger is mark shipment for consolidation. Don't choose the function one. We'll be back there in a few moments. Mark shipment for consolidation. It should show your object type here. Now, if we click it, it still requires us to type in a shipment or to select one from a dropdown. This is not what we want. What we want to do is click something here and then click the button and automatically pull in the value that's selected. Well, remember, our Gantt chart now outputs a variable called selected shipment. So in the button configuration, we're going to choose a parameter default. Parameter is something that an action needs in order to complete. And we're going to choose a local value. Local here just means it's inside of our workshop module. So we're going to pick a local value to push into that parameter. The parameter we want to set is the shipment. And what is the shipment? What's the local value? It is the selected shipment. So if I now click shipment 57, mark for consolidation, it shows shipment 57. I still have the opportunity to mess up here though. So one of the further steps that I could take with this action is just under where we defined the parameter defaults, we can disable the value so that it's locked in. And in fact, if we're confident that the user has made the right choice and they don't need to alter that choice, you can hide the form and apply immediately if valid. Now, I'm going to leave this turned off. I don't think the tutorial has you do that. In order to have our changes to the data show up inside of our Gantt chart, we're going to take advantage of the ontology property coloring that we just added, that conditional formatting that we added on the status property. So click into your Gantt chart once again. We're going to go into the layer configuration. Let's go down to display and formatting. For event color, we'll choose property. And the property we want to color by is going to be the status. And now we're ready to test this whole thing out. Let's click the Save and Publish button in the upper right. And then go into View mode. Let's come down to the Schedule tab. We'll filter St. Louis to New York. We've already done the math. 57 and 41, we can have some consolidation here. Let's click shipment 57, mark for consolidation, submit. Likewise, shipment 41, submit. We can enhance this further by adding the status property to the hover over text. Let's go back to edit mode, into your Gantt chart, into the layer, and we can add a column to show on hover, and we'll show the status. Scheduled, 57, eligible for consolidation. Let's click Save and Publish. Wouldn't it be nice if I could mark multiple shipments for consolidation? Now, the way that this ontology is currently set up, the way we're going to need to do this is with a function. Sometimes when you need more sophisticated logic in your actions, you'll need to create a function-backed action that will allow you to write TypeScript or sometimes Python code to integrate more business logic into the action itself. That's what we're going to do now. If you don't write code, don't worry. The tutorial gives you all the code that you need. What I'm going to do is show you how to cut and paste that code into your own environment and make sure that it works. We're going to temporarily leave our workshop module. Go up to the upper left corner. I like to click the three dots. This is going to take me into the containing folder. It's called, for me, Deep Dive Building Your First Application. I'm going to open it in a new tab by control click or command clicking on it. When we write a function, we use a different application in Foundry. It's called a code repository. Let's click the green New button in the upper right corner, and we're looking for code repository. The type of repository is a functions repository. It allows us to interact with the ontology. We're going to choose TypeScript functions for this tutorial, and let's just call this functions. You might consider prefixing it with your name, functions, just to make it distinguishable. Initialize repository will bootstrap the environment with all the tools you need to write code against the ontology. Your folder structure opens on the left side. You want to head into index.ts. This is where we're going to actually write our TypeScript code, and we have some sample code that ships out of the box with your new code repository, and we're just going to replace this entire thing eventually. First, what we need to do is we need to give this code repository access to the ontology object types and link types and other types that we might want to operate on. We're going to head to the left-hand side of the screen. There's a resource imports button. Click it, and we're going to add object types. Select your ontology, and then done. Here are all the types in your ontology, and of course you're looking for yours. Specifically, you're looking for your name shipment. And sometimes it can be finicky with the brackets if you've used brackets. Shipment, find your name shipment, and you're going to click the plus sign out to the right of your object type, and then click the save button in the bottom right. This makes this resource available to the code repository so that you can write code against it. If you are used to writing code, it's sort of like importing a package. Pandas, for example. You have to install the package in your environment first, and then and only then can you use it in an import statement. It's sort of similar. So you'll notice you've got object types. If you click into it, you'll see that it's got an API name. It should have this format, your name or whatever you prefixed your ontology object types with, and then the word shipment. It has a few properties in here, including shipment ID, shipment name. You can see all of them. So all of the object types, the property types, and if relevant, link types will show up here. And they've all got their own APIs. Now, while it might be useful to go through step by step in the tutorial and understand all the lines of code, what I'm going to do is show you how to just copy the finished result in, substitute in your values, and test it, deploy it, and move forward. So what I'd like you to do is head to the bottom of step 6 in the mark multiple shipments for consolidation using functions area of the tutorial, and you'll find a code block. And I'm going to copy that code block at the bottom of step 6. I'm going to Control A and then Control V and just paste it all in. Now, this isn't quite ready to use. In fact, if you give it a couple seconds, it gives you some red underlines and says, hey, we don't know about this thing called username shipment. And this is where we'll need to substitute in your API name. So mine is B Thomas shipment. I can copy to clipboard and just replace. We'll also need to replace it here, username shipment and username shipment. That should take care of all the errors. If you are interested in the syntax and what everything is doing, go look at the tutorial, go step by step. We can now remove these to-dos. This is just telling us to update the APIs for our particular type. We can remove that white space. We can remove the to-do line here. When we want to test a function, when it's error-free, we can come down to the bottom of our code repository into the functions panel, open it up. We see that we have a function here that's called mark shipments for consolidation. Here we see that's what the name of the method is on this class called shipment operations center functions, mark shipments for consolidation. In fact, you might even consider calling this your name, mark shipments for consolidation. Reason is your colleagues going through this training who are doing this in the same environment are going to be publishing functions of the same name. I'd suggest making it distinct. It's going to be an easy way for you to pick yours out of a lineup if you have to. So my name, mark shipments for consolidation. What you'll do is click the functions window at the bottom, choose a live preview. We don't have anything published yet, but we can live preview the function by clicking the name of the function. What this function does is it takes in a set of shipments and automatically gives them a status of eligible for consolidation. So we can just preview it here. Now we can just test this by clicking into shipments and then just clicking run. This is going to run it on every single shipment, and that's fine. We're just checking this out. So it'll take every single shipment one by one. Here's shipment 69, changes it from scheduled to eligible for consolidation, and that's fine. Okay, so it shows that it's at least working. We don't need to do anything more in terms of testing. So I'm going to close that functions window at the bottom. When we want to publish a function so that we can use it, for example, in an action, and this is a special decorator that allows us to use this function to edit the ontology edit function, we will first commit. We'll say create function is our commit message. And once we've committed, we'll go ahead in the upper right corner, the commit button becomes a tag button. Tagging allows us to release the function for general use. We can declare it either stable or maybe it's in some beta state. In that case, we'd mark it as pre-release. We can give it a semantic version. Maybe we'll call this a minor version, 0.1.0, and we can tag and release. We'll need to wait for a couple of minutes for continuous integration checks to run. After they do, we'll be back and we'll bring this into the ontology manager and create a function-backed action that we can put in our workshop module. Those continuous integration checks, you can monitor the status of them. Upper right corner of your code repository, you have a tag that lets you know things that are running, things that have succeeded, things that have failed. I can see that it is running checks. And after a few moments, checks will have succeeded. Once the checks have succeeded, I'm ready to use this function to back in action. We're good to go. Let's head back over to the ontology manager. I still have that open in another tab. If you didn't, Control J, Command J, look for ontology manager. Head over, you want to open your shipment object type. You can search for it, your name, shipment. You can filter the results to just object types and open your shipment. You will see Palantir has shipped one out of the box. Function, mark shipments for consolidation. For the purposes of this tutorial, we'd like you to just ignore that. We're going to create our own version of that. We've already written the code. We might as well create our own action type for it too. Let's click the new button in the upper right corner of the action types block. We're on the overview menu of the object type, your name, shipment. We want to configure a function-backed action. So don't choose object link, webhook, any of these other ones. We want to choose function. And then we need to find the relevant function. And it is called your name, mark shipments for consolidation. Now, if you happen to have two show up, hover over the little information icon out to the right. You want to make sure you choose the one that is not in the trash. You'll just want to get the one, if you mouse over it, it'll let you know, hey, you just created this one. I can correspond the timestamp with the current reality we live in. And it's not in the trash. So the other one looks like it's in the trash. That's not the one I want. It was created several days ago. Okay, so just make sure you do that. Pick the right one. And go ahead and click the next button. We need to name this action type. I'm going to name this my name, mark multiple shipments for consolidation. And then if you want to just grab the description from the tutorial, you don't have to type it out. I'm just going to copy and paste it in. It says sets status of the shipments to eligible for consolidation and click the next button. If you want this one to show up like the other action and just be limited to you, you can just change this to user and you can just have it be yourself. I am Ben teaches and create. If you are going through your branching workflow, you'll have to save to your branch and then merge that branch back in with the help of your ontology administrators. I'm going to go ahead and save to ontology, and save changes. Let's connect this now to our workshop module. Again, what we just did, previously, we were able to update the status of a single shipment in our Gantt chart. What we'd like to do now is be able to select multiple shipments and set them all to eligible for consolidation. Head back over to Workshop. I have mine open in another tab. If you're having trouble finding it from here, the left-hand sidebar, this is the workspace sidebar that's collapsed, or maybe it's open for you. If you go to Recents, you'll likely find your Shipment Operations Center Workshop module. Quick way to navigate over there. Get back into edit mode if that's the way that you got back to your Workshop module. And we're going to come down to our Gantt chart first. Click into your Gantt chart and go into your layer. Scroll all the way down to the bottom. And we are going to enable multi-select. We currently just had enable selection, but we want to allow users to select multiple Gantt chart bars at the same time. Turn that to the on position. Selected shipment can now include multiple. I can command click allows me to select multiple. And I can even see the number incrementing here, the number of shipments up to 3. I've got 3 things selected. So now we can click into our button. Mark shipment for consolidation is the name of the button. We're going to come down. We're going to change this action from mark shipment for consolidation to your name, mark multiple shipments for consolidation. Go ahead and click that. And now your parameter default is going to be for shipments. It will be selected shipment. So same thing. But if I select multiple, if I click and then command click, mark shipment for consolidation, it says, hey, we got 3 shipments we're going to push in. Let's find something maybe a little more realistic here. How about St. Louis to Chicago? And we have an instance here where shipment 32 has a 30,000 unit capacity. It's currently at 12,000. We have another one leaving and arriving at the same time. 7,000 with a 15,000 unit capacity. So we could combine 32 and 43. We can now do this at the same time. Click 32, control click 43, mark shipment for consolidation, 2 shipments, submit, and we've got them marked. Let's click Save and Publish in the upper right corner. At this point, you're free to play around with this. You can change the configuration, go update the data. You can change the way the ontology is configured, add new actions. You've now got all the tools you need to fully explore this workflow.